Let's talk politics and let's check in on Washington, D.C., where the girls are fighting in the GOP. Okay? They are not all getting along because the so called big, beautiful bill, the Trump blessed massive budget spending bill and tax cut bill that is moving through Congress, just passed the House, I think by just one single vote, which is like a razor thin margin. And it goes to the Senate, where it faces similarly pretty tough prospects of getting through, but has to receive at least a bare majority of votes. It can go 50-50 and then the vice president gets to break the tie. So they need 50 votes to pass this. And you already have multiple Republican senators breaking with the president on this and speaking out against the big, beautiful bill for reasons that seem pretty straightforward to me. Here is Senator Ron Johnson, who is a reliable Trump Republican from Wisconsin, but is pretty outspoken here about not wanting to go along with this bill because it adds too much to the deficit and the debt, which Trump promised to entirely eliminate. Take a listen to what Ron Johnson had to say.
President Trump has suggested that the debt is not really top of mind of his concerns. He wants Republicans to fall in line. He wants Republicans to pass the bill. You told CNN, quote, "Somebody's got to be the dad that says, I know y'all want to go to Disney World, but we can't afford it. I guess I'm going to be that guy," unquote. So how determined are you to be that guy if it actually means telling President Trump you are going to vote against the bill and you're going to try to get other Republican senators to join you unless there are major, major changes?
Well, in 2010, I sprang out of the Tea Party movement, and as I did parades, I would shout, "This is a fight for freedom. We are mortgaging our children's future. It's wrong. It's immoral. It has to stop." I haven't changed. My campaign promise in 2010 and every campaign after that was to stop mortgaging our children's future. It's immoral, it's wrong, it has to stop. And so he may not be worried about that. I am extremely worried about that. That is my primary goal running for Congress. This is our moment. We've witnessed an unprecedented level of increased spending, 58% since 2019, other than World War II. This is our only chance to reset that to a reasonable pre-pandemic level of spending. And again, I think you can do it, and the spending that we would eliminate, people wouldn't even notice. But you have to do the work, which takes time.
I think he's spot on here. You have to understand that we're looking at, under this bill, running massive, massive budget deficits in the very near future, even bigger than under baseline law. For example, according to the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the 2027 deficit will be more than 1/3 larger under this bill. So instead of the projected current number of 1.7 trillion, it will be a 2.3 trillion estimated deficit. That's insane. That's a huge, huge budget deficit. And trillions of dollars more piled onto the backs of young people like myself, who will be paying off the interest for the rest of our lives, and onto generations that aren't even born yet. So my view on this has always been very simple. I understand that, like, maybe during a recession, you might want to run a small budget deficit to kind of stimulate the economy with tax cuts or different spending programs, but then you should run a surplus when you're not in a recession to balance it out over time, because it is, like Ron Johnson says, massively immoral to enjoy benefits today, which is what this spending is supposed to be. I understand that not all of it actually goes to benefits, to benefiting people. A lot of it doesn't. But this spending is supposed to be for things we want today. But we are passing the tab down to future generations. How would we look at parents who took out credit cards in their children or grandchildren's names, bought a bunch of stuff for themselves with it, and then let their grandkids and kids pay it off the rest of their lives? We'd be like, wow, those are terrible people. Very selfish, very unfair of them to do that. That is what Congress does when it runs these massive deficits and just piles on to the trillions and trillions of dollars of the national debt, which hurts the economy in a bunch of ways, and again has these massive interest payments that people will have to pay off for decades and decades to come. I do think that is immoral and wrong, and basically every Republican says they think the same, but then when they actually get into power, they go and blow massive holes in the deficit in the budget anyway. Another one who's speaking out on this is Senator Rand Paul, who is a strong fiscal hawk. He had this to say about this whole fiasco.
Biden spending levels. When March, every Republican, virtually every Republican other than me, voted to continue the Biden spending levels, which are going to give us a $2.2 trillion deficit. Now, if you increase the debt ceiling $4 to $5 trillion, that means they're planning on $2 trillion this year and more than $2 trillion next year. That's just not conservative. So I've told them if they strip out the debt ceiling, I'll consider, even with the imperfections, voting for the rest of the bill. But I can't vote to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. There's got to be someone left in Washington who thinks debt is wrong and deficits are wrong and wants to go in the other direction. The idea that we're going to explode deficits, and the projections are now looking at over $3 trillion in deficits over the next 10 years, I think is just, not a serious proposal. Somebody has to stand up and yell, the emperor has no clothes, and everybody's falling in lockstep on this. Pass the big, beautiful bill. Don't question anything. Well, conservatives do need to stand up and have their voice heard. This is a problem we've been facing for decades now, and if we don't stand up on it, I really fear the direction the country is going.
I agree with him. Again, I mean, I understand that they have a very thin majority in Congress, so they can't get a perfect bill, and they have to try to appeal to like moderate squish Republicans and the Freedom Caucus or whatever, but they have to be able to do better than this. A bill that's expected, according to the Wall Street Journal, to add $3 trillion or so to the deficit over a decade, when they ran on balancing the budget entirely and ending budget deficits, which of course was never realistic, but you could at least not increase them by that much, couldn't you? Is that really too much to ask? Most Republicans are just scared of Trump. He wants to pass this bill. He's attacking people who don't go along with it. I give credit to the few out there like Ron Johnson and Rand Paul, who apparently actually believe at least some of the things they say they believe and are willing to take a stand, even if it's going to get them angry tweets from the White House. It's been one of the great sorrows of my political career as somebody who's quite fiscally conservative to just watch 99% of Republicans lie to my face for years that they were fiscal hawks, that they believed in free market capitalism, that they were going to balance the budget, that they were going to do all these things and then get in power and give massive handouts to corporations and special interests they align with, carve massive loopholes in the tax code for special interests that benefit them, and refuse to meaningfully cut spending or roll back these entitlement programs that are driving our country into this massive fiscal crisis. Maybe I was dumb and naive for ever believing any of them. I always knew some of them had to be full of it, but I didn't realize that it was basically all except a handful. What do you guys think? Do you support the big, beautiful bill? I certainly don't. I understand you can't get everything you want, but you have to be able to do better than this monstrosity, if you ask me. But I definitely want to hear from you guys, so let me know what you think in the comments.